Good afternoon, everyone. We're on a tight schedule as we wind up this final afternoon of Food Loves Tech. So if you're engrossed in a conversation, please, we ask that you take it downstairs. And thank you, everyone, for coming to this discussion. So this topic about technology helping us cook more or be better chefs, it's really quite central to the whole mission of Food Loves Tech. We were talking yesterday that the sort of big questions in our minds as we organize this event is always, is this tech helping us eat better, and is it helping us grow food better? And if so, then we're interested in promoting it and exploring it further and introducing farmers and chefs and others to this technology. And we have quite a diversity of folks from the food chain here, a few chefs, folks on the farming side, folks on the technology side, to give us a sense of where they think cooking is going, whether we're sort of flat or trending up or trending down. And maybe it's not as simple as that answer, because the sort of cooking that you're doing downstairs in the General Electric kitchen is not the sort of cooking that maybe my grandmother did or your grandmother. I wanted to just start by quickly introducing everyone and sort of asking you each one question, and we can get more into it, but of all the different tools and devices and platforms that you have access to in the kitchen, and if you're a home cook as opposed to a professional cook, which is the one that you can least do with, what can you not do without, is a question. So Chef Kang, can you tell us what you do with Tyson, and then what your favorite tool and technology is in the kitchen?
Sure. My name is Kang. I'm the Culinary Ninja for the Tyson Innovation Lab. Tyson Innovation Lab is started by Tyson Foods to sort of push our company forward. If you think about a lot of our legacy brands are very legacy, they solve problem of the time. The Innovation Lab was there to solve the modern problems. So I'm the Culinary Ninja, which means I come up with interesting things and make things happen when it needs to. For me, the piece of equipment I can't do without when it comes to tech-wise is my VitaPrep and my phone. So,
your VitaPrep?
My VitaPrep is my super industrial blender. I swear by that machine. So.
And your phone, because it ties you into smart appliances, or because you use the timer?
So I'm not that smart yet. So the phone at this point ties me into the rest of the world that allows me to search for ideas, ingredients, and just kind of be able to reach out from the kitchen into sort of the wider, broader ether, right? So for ideas and for recipes.
Oh, fantastic. So moving over to Chef Tyler Florence, who cooked an amazing meal last night at Covina, which I've never been to. That last night was my first time at that restaurant. That was a lot of fun. It felt very European, downstairs in that wine cellar. So you have been working with Innit for the last few years, and Innit is a platform that is, I've heard compared to sort of being like the Google Maps of cooking. It's that, as you said, that chef on your shoulder helping you cook. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do within Innit and how you got involved with them?
Well, first of all, I just want to say how excited I am to be here at Food Loves Tech. Are you guys having a great conference? Isn't this great? It's my first time here. And it's also really great to be back in Brooklyn. I lived in Brooklyn for about 10 years when I graduated from culinary school. I went to a culinary school at Johnson & Wales University in Charleston, South Carolina. And then I moved here when I was 21 years old and got a job with Charlie Palmer at the original Oriel. And so New York City and Brooklyn specifically is very, very special to me. So I'm so glad to be back. My wife and I moved to Northern California in 2006. And now we have 2 restaurants in Northern California. We manage a big wine brand, and also we're tech enthusiasts in a really, really deep way. And we've been involved in food as media, obviously. It's my 22nd year on television with Food Network. And we have a really amazing 2019 lined up with those folks creating like amazing content. But the world is changing in a lot of ways, right? And it's becoming more specific. Like personalization to me is something I've always been really, really passionate about. So I got a chance to to work with Innit, oh God, almost 3 years ago. It's been a while, and the journey has been fabulous, right? And it's a very, very special tech company, INNIT. Download the app right now on your phone. It's on the iOS App Store, and it's also the Google Play Store. It is spectacular, right? We've been really breaking down the whys of how people do things, not just necessarily the desire, but why do you do it in the first place, right? So, and also how do you use technology? How do you use content? And so we've been creating a massive library of content that is very different than anything else in the world because it is very customizable to you specifically as a user. And I think that's where technology and food tech should be today. We were at the Smart Kitchen Summit last year in Seattle, and we had this thought that kind of got a lot of traction, but we said that recipes are dead, right? And I know it's kind of a bold statement, especially coming from a guy who's written 20,000 recipes for Food Network and 16 cookbooks. It's like, what do you mean recipes are dead? Because that's where content starts. And what I mean by that, it's like recipes will always be around, but the form factor of how they're being delivered right now is drastically changing for the better. And I think it's really, really interesting. Now I have 1,000 cookbooks at home. I'm not exaggerating, and that's probably a soft 1,000. And out of those books, to me, it's the root stock of American cooking. It's the root stock of some of the most talented chefs in the world that I've been following forever. It's the root stock of cooking and the history of food. I have some cookbooks that are hundreds of years old, and like first edition copies of some really rare things. And to me, like to be able to extract that content in a way and make it more relevant to today's audience, to me is amazing. Now, we're all going to relate, especially if I'm 48 years old, so you're probably going to relate with me when I say, like, I love vinyl, but I don't have a record player anymore, right? And so the same way that paper maps are starting to dissolve and GPS is starting to become the technology that really gets you from A to B, and it's not a catch-all A to B, right? Yes, there's a couple of routes how do you get from San Francisco to Reno, Nevada. Yeah, there's a couple of routes. But specifically, what time am I leaving? What does the traffic look like from A to B? Where can I stop and get some food? I want to get some gas on the way. What's the most scenic version? What's the fastest version? How am I going to avoid traffic? I think the kitchen today should speak to that because that's where people really want to go. They want customized information that's designed specifically for me as a cook. Just because you see something on television or you see a recipe in a magazine, that's just half the battle. It's a jumping off point. And that's what we began to realize when people were using recipes that are delivered through what they call like legacy media, and that's like books and magazines and that kind of thing. And all that stuff will be around for a really, really long time, but it can't keep up with digital video content that's starting to be created, right? Because you're starting to, like the world is starting to open up. The underground is way bigger than the surface when it comes to creative content. And you're starting to see these little pulses of creative content all over the place. And it's very, very, very interesting to watch that evolve, right?
So I think you've given a good sense of the power of Innit, and I think what you've also touched on, it's a good segue to Shawn, is right, recipes are dead, the cookbook is dead, and the dumb kitchen, maybe the era of the dumb kitchen, that's a term that you came up with, is also dead. But let's transition. So Innit is an amazing app. Check it out. It sort of, guides you through cooking a Halloween turkey, a Thanksgiving turkey, and anything else you might.
You can have turkey year round.
Right.
Yeah.
But
Halloween,
you still need it to interact with your appliances.
Exactly.
And that's where Shawn Stover comes in. Shawn is the VP of Smart Home Solutions at GE Appliances. He and his team, cram in the sensors and the Wi-Fi and the other sort of smart gadgetry into what was essentially the most analog part of our home. So can you tell us about what you're trying to accomplish at GE Appliances?
Yeah, sure. At GE, we're really looking at the connectivity part of the kitchen, right? And so we're really trying to take things that Tyler talked about with Innit and bring those to life and put those into the products that every one of us have in our home and really drive that flexibility and that function into those models. So we have an open platform. We drive it across all of our product lines. So whether it's a range or a dishwasher or a refrigerator or a laundry machine, right? That connectivity runs across the gambit to give people not only the solutions in their kitchen, but the solutions in their home that they're looking for. So the Wi-Fi, the sensors, all of those things bring the power of what we can develop at GE Appliances to life, but it also brings the power of what our partners can bring to life as well. So partnering with people like Innit or Google or Amazon allow us to bring voice, allow us to bring functionality to a platform that never existed before. Because when you bought an appliance before and you installed it in your home, it really didn't change. It didn't get any better. It didn't give you any more functionality. But through a connected appliance and through a Wi-Fi connection and the platform that we've developed with U+ Connect and the partners that we have on that platform, we're really able to change that and provide you with features and functionalities that might show up 2 years after you bought that appliance and make that appliance better and give you functionality that you're looking for, or provide you replenishment opportunities so you don't have to go to the store and get it. You can have it just delivered right to your home because the machine already knows that you use that type of a product, or you use that laundry detergent and it's almost gone, so it's just going to show up at your door. Or you cooked that chicken and we add it to your grocery list automatically, right?
And to add what you're saying, and turn those successes into a code that you can tap into your oven, and it'll make the same turkey or the same chicken 1,000 times in a row, and it'll always be successful. Like, the evolution of the smart kitchen is amazing.
Right. And so Bake 350's gone, right? There's a whole bunch of different ways to do things. So as our partners add functionality, as we add functionality, you get this orchestration layer between this ecosystem that never existed before that will unlock the ability of products and software that I think is going to just be a great journey for all of us to go
And
down.
this is a $64,000 question, which we'll come back to. Does this kind of make cooking robotic? Or I know you don't think it does. So I mean,
Yeah, no, I'm not one for a cooking robot, right? I think there's a lot of emotion in cooking and in food. And one, I want to see that come back. And we're really looking at providing the guided and precision cooking that allows people to have the confidence to make those meals, put them on the table for their family, have those conversations, and then have those memories that they pass on down to their children so that their children do it with their children, and so on and so forth. And that's something that we're really looking to drive, is that kind of that ownership, that really kind of at-home feel and family feel that really comes from eating food and eating food together, not pushing a button and having a machine spit it out.
no, it's really it's an assist. As you said, you turn your oven up to 350 and you can kind of walk away and assume it's going to just stay there and do the 350, but there's a huge world beyond Bake 350, but this tool allows you to step away and, as you said, catch up on reading, help someone with their homework, etc.
Absolutely.
Let's jump ahead out of the kitchen a little bit to a very interesting and new delivery system for seeds. Seedsheet, the founder, one of the co-founders, MacKugler, is here representing. Tell us what Seedsheet is, and please tell us why it touches on our kitchen, even though it's something having to do with our gardens.
Yeah, for sure. So what the Seedsheet is a curated gardening kit that features dissolvable pods like laundry pods, but instead of soap, obviously, ours have organic seeds and soil embedded within a weed-blocking fabric. So all that you have to do is place the sheet on top of soil. Once you water it, pods dissolve, plants sprout. But the most intriguing aspect of our product line is that we have a text messaging functionality that tracks your garden's growth and sends different automated tips via YouTube videos or just regular text-based notifications that will guide the customer from seed to supper. And so, kind of following a lot of the themes here already, like, we really believe that food is personal. You want to have that connection to what you're growing. It's not a commodity. It is what you've put your blood, sweat, and tears into. Well, hopefully not blood. We're not using scissors anymore. This is a pretty simple gardening product, but it's really connecting that home consumer to their food at a more emotional, physical level than going to the store.
And the customization that I can do, because I've used seed sheets in my garden, and it's pretty incredible. I mean, the one thing is it keeps the weeds down, but the other thing is it's sort of, leapfrogs you over this step that some people struggle with, which is, just kind of laying out the seeds properly. But what do you mean when they can customize their sheet that they put down?
Sure. So we offer two different variations on our products. One is pre-designed recipe-inspired kits. So we have different arrangements of plants that will grow your ingredients for a taco garden, a hot sauce garden, pizza, pickles, pesto, cocktails. We have basically all sorts of fun and funky varieties that are out there. But then we also have customizable. So you can go to our website, and depending on where you're living and depending on the size of the garden that you want to grow, you can pick and choose from over 75 different varieties of all organic seeds and build your own virtual garden, which we then manufacture and ship to your door. So our fun slogan is, we're not meal delivery, we're farm delivery.
So as we talk about GE's new tech and Innit's tech, simplifying, eliminating the pain points in the kitchen. Hopefully we have more brain space for shopping and planning around the meal, but you're eliminating some of those pain points in the garden. And so hopefully that also streamlines the whole food experience. And on the end, I want to welcome Bahubali Shete, who's the CEO of Klove Chef, which is just out of stealth mode, based here in New York and in India with a dev team in India. Can you please tell us what Klove Chef does?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here. Klove Chef, what we do is two things. One is we make cooking simple, and second is we make people very confident to cook whatever they like to cook in their kitchen. And the way we do it is pretty much the same thing which most of the gentlemen here talked about, is we have a conversational platform wherein the consumers can actually say, I want to cook something with, I have chicken and tomatoes, I have 20 minutes to cook, and what can I cook? And they start from there, right from either you call it meal planning or recipe discovery, and then all the way to shopping those ingredients and then cooking through that recipe step by step with cook along. What we found during our initial days of research is that the most convenient way of cooking for anybody and being confident while they are cooking is if you are talking to, say, your mom or your aunt or your sister or somebody whom you know, and you are having a natural conversation, and in those conversations, if you are cooking, they could be standing next to you or they could be on a speakerphone with you, but you're talking to them and then telling them how the cooking is going, and then cook along with them. That's the most natural way of cooking. And that's what we picked the cue from, and then we said, now we can build this on a voice platform. Cooking actually involves more than one sense, and it's just voice is the beginning for us. Our solution runs on Amazon Alexa and Google Home, and you don't have to download anything, you don't have to do anything, you just have to say open Klove Chef. If you have an Alexa or Google Home, just go home and say open Klove Chef, that's it, and then you can get started with cooking whatever you like. We have a few sets of recipes, we have a few hundred recipes now to start with, but then we are coming out with tons of recipes from, we have a celebrity chef who has come on board. He has about more than 6,000 recipes, and we have partners who are coming on board. So it's actually a platform wherein the cooking cookbooks or cooking appliance manufacturers, and they all partner, they bring their content on the platform, and then you could pick whatever recipe you like and then start cooking through it step by step. That's what we do.
That's very helpful. Now, when you imagine the use case of someone who says open Klove Chef and starts using it for a few weeks and months, and same question in terms of someone using Innit, how do you imagine their cooking evolving? I mean, they're going to learn a few new recipes. Do they eventually outgrow having to talk to Klove Chef at all? Do they really become does cooking become a habit because technology's assisted them?
I think technique is the new instruction, right? So the idea of teaching you how to fish versus giving you a fish in a way, right? Where if you're opening up the refrigerator and that simple question of hey mom, what's for dinner? Or what can I possibly do with chicken breast again? Technique is everything, right? So you can make one base recipe that can trampoline into dozens, if not hundreds of other recipes. So we've created a platform on Innit where we've created thousands of 3 to 6 minute small little technique videos that are completely customizable to you, right? So if you want chicken or ribs or pork chops or salmon or whatever you want for dinner tonight, you can pick the protein, you can pick the sauce, you can pick the carbohydrate, and you can pick the vegetable. And then all of those tiny little videos will reorganize themselves and replay a complete recipe that you organize yourself. And that's your content, your recipe that you designed specifically for you. And there's 23,000 permutations of recipe combinations inside the app. There's more opportunities for recipes inside the Innit app than there are probably nights you'll have on planet Earth, right? So you'll never run out of ideas. And I think that's the most important thing, because right now, when people are using recipe content, they're using it as a jumping off point. Like, I wanna, that's a really good idea. I'm allergic to this. We're gluten-free. I don't have time for that. I don't have that particular ingredient, but I'm gonna take that idea, I'm gonna make it my own. And we wanna encourage that, right? Because that's when you're actually cooking. When you're starting to get really, really comfortable with technique, where you could say, okay, I mastered this cool pesto recipe, now I'm gonna add this to a pasta salad, or I'm gonna stir this into mashed potatoes. We just created a bunch of like amazing Thanksgiving content that's gonna be on the app in about a week, where we designed like 6 new mashed potato recipes, for example, right? So it's one base mashed potato technique, and I know mashed potatoes are simple, it's just mashed potatoes. But then what else can you possibly do with them, right? So we created a vegan mashed potato where we took roasted onion puree that we pureed with vegetable stock and emulsified with olive oil and made a creamy texture out of that, and then added it to rice potatoes. So you make a vegan potato that doesn't have any cream or any butter, and it's one of the most delicious things that I've made in a really long time. I was just actually kind of blown away by it. And then we also made a recipe using burrata as cream, right? So we took burrata, pureed it, and then added that into rice potatoes, and then added pesto. So the idea of like having an unlimited amount of like directions where you can take little twists and turns inside the choose your own adventure, that to me is where I think recipe development should go, and that's what we're working on within it.
Do you see a similar use case or different evolution?
Yeah, no, what we do a little differently is that there is tons of information out there, thanks to internet. We have tons of chef tips and cooking hacks which is available out there. So what we do is we have algorithms which actually picks these little hacks and then maps it to the dish which you are cooking and gives you those little smart tips so that you know exactly how you're cooking and how your cooking is evolving. And that builds a lot of confidence in you. I mean, it's not just about following a recipe step by step, but it's also about having a conversation at the same time, trying to understand, is it done really, or can I go to the next step, or is it overcooked or undercooked? You have those little things. And those questions, if they can be answered using these small chef tips, then people become much more confident about their cooking. That's what we do. We bring in those small nuances in your recipes so that you can cook much more confidently. And that actually makes people to cook much better.
So I'd love to add to that. So if you think back to science and technology, before it was science and technology, it was magic. It's sorcery. First time somebody made meringue, it was like, what's going on?
You're a magician.
My egg white is messed up, right? Like, then it becomes an art. For me, art is something that it's not always duplicable because it's a genius, it's a stroke, that it's a lightning bolt that hits you. Then the good artists actually make it a craft, right? They practice and they become really good at it. So the artistic touch can be placed upon the techniques that they have already. And even beyond that, it becomes science. It's duplicable every time. So if now science is there for you because of the technology available by these gentlemen and these amazing tech, you can apply your art. You can apply your touch. And it becomes not so much of, I don't know if this is going to work, so let's just order a pizza as a backup, right? So that's from my perspective.
And partnering with people like Tyson and GE, so we're really excited about really kind of tackling the kitchen operating system. And I know that's a big obtuse theme that everybody's talking about, but we've been quietly working on it for a couple of years, and we're getting in this thing where you can actually see what we're working on now. Like we're working on this new thing where Innit will allow you, if you walk into a grocery store, and we just tested this last week and premiered it at the Smart Kitchen Summit, and the technology is just amazing. You walk up to a Tyson chicken in the grocery store, and it has a QR code on the package, and we're developing that right now. And you put your phone, your camera over the QR code, and a recipe video will pop up immediately showing you what to do with that particular product as if somebody's walking around the grocery store with you, right? And wouldn't that be amazing? Like you kind of walk up and go, oh, okay, there's a chicken. Yeah, okay, I basically know what to do with the chicken, but I don't really understand the variations of what I can do with the chicken. And you could quietly spend 3 minutes in the grocery store getting a baseline of knowledge that's never really existed before. And that's what we're trying to touch people in a lot of different directions, and ultimately we want people to feel more comfortable in their own kitchen space, right? I mean, that's the big thing. Like, people love their kitchen, and they spend so much money designing beautiful kitchens, right? And it's really something, it's a point of pride. Now we want to be able to take successes and turn it into code, right? We want to be able to take a perfect roasted chicken that's just tender and absolutely delicious, and then be able to kind of create like a 19, 23, 29 different step cooking process, which actually waveform, right? Like a dumb kitchen or a dumb oven, you would put it in at 350 and kind of hope for the best. Now, like, the chicken will start at a high temperature, drop at a low temperature, cook for most of the way through, have an injection with steam, and then finish at a higher temperature to crisp that up. Like, we can do that in a test kitchen because I can take a look at that and react to it. And if we can take that success and quantify it, we can turn that into code that we can turn into, a digital operating system that we can power GE ovens with. And that way, when you get the Tyson chicken at home, you can take it home and snap it into your GE oven and then hit a button, and that chicken will be perfect every single time. And that, to me, is the success, because then it takes the stress out, right? Because everybody loves to cook and they love to eat and they love good food, but the stress around cooking, like, is it gonna work out? We want it to work out every single time. And that's what we've been striving to do for the last couple of years.
And I think the success that comes out of those, right, it breeds the curiosity, and it takes somebody to look at something different. So I might go from this recipe to that recipe, and then I've had that success, and now I'm doing, coconut chicken curry or something like that. I'm expanding my palate, I'm expanding the palate of my family, and I'm doing things that I wouldn't normally do. And really, that's what we want to try and drive with the success, is this connection and this ability and that success rate, giving that curiosity back to people and expanding their palates out.
I mean, can we talk about impacts outside of the kitchen? I was looking at the Tyson product, this new sort of traceability tag that'll be on, I think, most products eventually. Annie's Organic is also doing something very similar with its product. Does that give the consumer info on, theoretically, expiration and how much this weighs and nutritional value? So again, they're getting additional cues they weren't before, that, your chicken's been in your fridge 10 days, you better cook it in the next few days. Is that sort of where this is going? You were talking about the smart ovens being able to sort of clean themselves and know when they're low on certain things, and you can fix it remotely. So, are we seeing even solutions to other problems beyond limited cooking skills?
Yeah, I think you got some opportunities in traceability, or even just seasonal cooking, right? It's this time of year we should be starting to eat winter vegetables and eating inside of a supply chain that is there. And if you look at the connections and the content that can either be delivered through appliances or through screens or through applications, right? It gives you the ability to cook with inside the supply chain, cook things for your family, create recipes that are there. Do things with leftovers that I might have. So if I made a pork loin on Monday, how do I repurpose it on Wednesday, so that I'm trying to eliminate that food waste that's there? So I think there's a lot of opportunities that's there, as well as kind of looking at, if I know what the expiration date, I know that traceability, what can I make? What I should be cooking this on Wednesday because it's available.
So you mean I'm gonna Iron Chef leftover every night? As they open the fridge and stare at the ketchup and waiting for inspiration? So the Innovation Lab, the first project was around food waste. So some of the stuff we were working through at the beginning, we were trying to understand, was it consumer food waste? Was it leftover? Was it restaurant food waste? One of the ideas that we came up with that we can't use, that we would love for restaurants to think about, is when you go to a hotel, nowadays in the bathroom, there's always a little sign that says, for our sustainably, conscious hotel brands, please hang up your towel if you want to reuse it. Please put it on the ground if you want us to change it. We know, and everybody knows, it's a little bit self-serving. However, what does that look like for a restaurant? So when you go to a restaurant, you have a little bit of leftover. I don't know if you know, but the action of taking your leftover to put it in a leftover carry-out box is the same as you have to scraping into a garbage can. So automatically, when the server is packing up your leftover, you have this negative connotation to it. Well, for a restaurant, the server comes up and says, "Sir, ma'am, I see you have a few bites left over. Can we offer you a little side salad? Can we offer you a little house soup at cost to us? Make this into a lunch for you tomorrow," right? That's just a matter of rethinking. How cool is it when we're talking about smart labels and all? You know, FIFO, first in, first out, it's usually first in, last out. We forget what's on the back of the fridge behind the yogurt and the milk. Well, if it's a way for you to have the data to be kept tracked and for the Innit to be able to help you make that Friday leftover night to use up, right? And you say how many people you want to cook for, right? So if nobody likes eating leftover of leftover, right? Leftover is bad enough. Leftover is even worse.
Except leftover pie.
Or leftover steak.
Yeah, I
Right,
could eat leftover pie for a couple of days. I could.
So the thought here is that if you're cooking for 4, then that ingredient needs to last for 4. If you're cooking for 8, that ingredient goes from as an entree into a pasta, into a steak, right? So having that ability, somebody to help you think through that, just make sure that, it's a lot less food waste.
And you're talking not just about technology solutions, these are cultural shifts. I mean, like a cafeteria deciding to have smaller plates to control serving size. We're going to take questions from the audience, but Cam, one quick question. Can you describe a typical Seedsheet user and sort of what they're doing around? I mean, is it a family activity? Are these single people? Who's your typical user?
Well, we are specifically targeting in our marketing the urban millennials of the world, just because it's, again, those food-conscious consumers that want to know the story behind their food, where it's coming from. If you're growing it yourself, you're obviously going to know if you've been putting pesticides on it and having the ability to not put pesticides on it. So we've definitely been targeting that side, but because of our experience with Shark Tank and QVC, we have been selling gardens to literally every age, every ability, every part of the country. And what's been really intriguing is that the text messaging functionality that we do have has been broadly used and loved by all of our customers, to the point that we even have customers emailing us saying, "I love getting these notifications, can you send more?" And I think we are literally the only company in the world that's had customers ask to be advertised more. But it's been a phenomenal experience for us, where we've really been able to take all of our customers, regardless of their skill sets, and rally them around that collective desire to know where their food comes from and to make the highest quality meal as a result of it, while also minimizing the food waste by being able to say, "Hey, this is how you harvest your cilantro so that it can keep on growing after the fact." Once you know how to do that, you're only going to harvest what you need, and you're going to leave the rest on the plant for it to keep growing so you can harvest it later.
All right, do we have some questions from the audience? Yes, there's one back there. Will you wait for the microphone? It's coming.
Hi. So I used to work at a food magazine, and now I'm a recipe editor, so very much still in the legacy sort of format. I think while most of us still have dumb kitchens, is there a way that recipes can become better right now? Can recipes as they are?
Well, yeah. To me, I think that like I said before, like the underground is way bigger than the surface when it comes to like recipe content, right? So I think like looking at YouTube stars, for example, or looking at Instagram stars, to me is a really great source of inspiration because of how easy it is to create fantastic content today. I think right now America has, without a doubt, the best generation of the most talented chefs that the country has ever had, hands down. And that's because of the free flow of information that's happening specifically through social media, right? Where I'm 48 years old, so when I was like 28, I would have to fly from New York City to San Francisco, drive to Yountville, get a reservation at the French Laundry, eat dinner, take pictures with a camera, and then put that, and then show that on a laptop back to my staff when I got back to say, hey, this is what they're doing, out on the West Coast. And now you can see what these people are posting for specials every night. So the idea exchange is creating such a competent culture of cooking because you see ideas. And I think that's where it really starts, is just sharing ideas, right? The idea of like technique, there's nothing wrong with 101. 101 is actually a really amazing place to start a conversation with an audience, right? And not like we're trying to create, not trying to turn the culinary world on its ear. I'm trying to show you the most fabulous technique for the juiciest, most tender, seared, boneless, skinless chicken breasts you've ever had in your entire life, and there's no shame in that, right? It's not boring. It's really exciting to a lot of people when you can create these small little step-by-step victories for people. And that's what I really like a lot. Like, to me, there's so much great content out there every day, right? So much good stuff that I think it's inspiring in a lot of ways, right? And I think you have to answer your question in a very long, loopy way, and I'm assuming you were pointing it to me. I apologize if I'm taking everybody's time. But to me, what is taking the information and sharing it as wide as possible and asking for feedback, right? And that's what I love about social media, because you can post something on Instagram story or post something on Twitter, and people will give you live real-time feedback on did it work out or not, right? And monthly magazines used to never get that kind of feedback. It was always a guess. And now you can post something and kind of get immediate real-time feedback and then give it back to them back and forth. And I think that's amazing. I think it's amazing.
Bahubali or Chef, anything to add in terms of how do we improve recipes today?
I agree with Chef, and I think that I refer back to some Chinese, and Chinese chefs are known not to share recipes, right? They're like Chinese kitchen, well, they're a little bit dirty too, so they don't want to show it. We know that, but they don't share a recipe because it's handed down to them through generations. So for them, it's part of the family. It's like Bruce Lee back in the day, teaching kung fu to everybody and anybody, and he was banned from his own people for it. But I think the share information pushes that laziness. If you don't share information, you don't have to evolve. You don't have to innovate because you're the only one doing it. But the moment you share informations, you need to stay ahead and to become better, to innovate, right? So I think this democratizing of information will create better cook and create better content, and overall eating should be better.
Yeah, it clearly raises the bar.
Yep. One thing which we are doing, which is going to come out very soon, is we are creating what's called a recipe box. This is the good old concept of where people used to have their recipe boxes, keeping their good old recipe content, even including their own handwritten recipes, the grandma's recipes, the mom's recipes, and all that. We are trying to bring that into digital world. So with that, what we are trying to do is, you could say, Alexa, I want to cook something and I want this recipe to be recorded. And you can just have a conversation with Alexa and give that recipe, and then the Alexa will actually, it's basically Klove Chef, will actually convert that recipe into a proper format and put the necessary pictures and ingredient. It creates automatically the ingredient list, the kitchen tools required, preparations required, everything is done automatically with our machine learning algorithms. And then it can be shared through your own apps and whatever means you do, and with your friends, families, and kith and kin. This way, we are trying to bring back my grandma's recipes back into life in the digital world. So that's another angle where the recipes of no matter what. I mean, in India it's very specific. Like no matter what, how good my wife cooks. End of the day, when I taste it, I said, my mom does it better. And that recipe is always missing. So we are trying to bring that back into life.
Well, it's funny, as everyone's saying, farmers also say that their best source of solutions is Instagram. They look at what other farmers are doing, or they just literally post a picture of their problem and other farmers weigh in. So that's completely revolutionary. In the feed kitchen, they're trying to figure out ways to use tomato waste, because Mir Glenn is providing the tomatoes, and they basically Googled for tomato waste recipes, and what came up was out of a Victory Garden book from World War II, and how to use tomatoes. So a lot of that has been digitized, but no one would. Now we're getting access to it.
I think when you share, the more you share, the more you get. The more you give, the more you get. And that's what we're seeing. And you don't even necessarily have to be the creator of the content. You just have to be the pipeline of the content, right? So if you see other great, cool recipes or other great YouTubers or Instagram stars, just sharing that back and forth and become like the conduit, the connective tissue, the center nucleus of a much, much wider storyline, that's how you grow.
Does Klove Chef work in different languages?
Currently, we support English, and then we will be, releasing in German, Italy, and Hindi languages very soon.
Cam, did you want?
I was just going to say that one of the cool things that we've seen recently from the farming side is as recipes are just getting, or maybe chefs are getting more entrepreneurial in their own regard, is more chefs working directly with farmers to actually change the way that the produce itself is being grown with regards to how it's being tasted. So a perfect example is Row 7 seeds and how Dan has been working with those farmers to create different strains, impact the way that those varietals of plants are being grown to impact the taste of the finished produce. So that's just a pretty unbelievable way that, because of chefs, we're changing the way that plants are being grown and they're tasting at the end of the day.
Do we have time for one more question? Yep. Anyone? Anyone? Chef out there?
Mine is just on fresh ingredients, food deserts, affordability. How can you take the basic ingredients and bring that to people that don't always have that access and just make it its freshest with technology?
You can grow your own.
Good question.
I think growing your own is a really great place to start. Like we just built a garden this year at home, and I've had gardens my whole life in the different places I've lived in, but we just committed to that, and it was one of the most joyous experiences of 2018 was like our garden that we built, right? And right now because it's Northern California, but we're still getting like the last little bit of the beautiful yellow cherry tomatoes, and we're getting to like these beautiful Romano beans that when they were really tender, they were soft, and you could just saute them. But now they're going like all the way to just seeds. So we're harvesting those and dehydrating them. And we have like about 5 pounds of Romano beans that are dried, which can be amazing. We have chilies and all that kind of stuff, and it's just so much fun. It's just so much fun. And I think food waste and food deserts are going to be one of the things that we're going to have to address, right? There's enough food. Like everything is food shortages. There's enough food. We just throw it out. Right? Like the food pipeline is so wildly inefficient of how food gets from a farm to a market, and then a market to the user, and then the end user, how long it lives in your space, and it rots in your fridge. I mean, if everyone could just visualize what's in their crisper drawer right now, you'll understand exactly what I'm talking about. Like there is plenty of food for everybody. We just don't use it efficiently.
I'll just add, I think I'm very bullish on frozen foods and better freezing technology as a way to make fruit and vegetables more accessible.
Shelf life.
Shelf life, and I think the freezer might be like the most neglected part of the kitchen, right? I mean, we don't like really optimize how we stuff our freezer with stuff we ignore.
Exactly, and the kind of the kitchen design and storage inside of a refrigerator, and again that back to that supply chain. If I know where you're at, like what your growing season is, what grows well in your area, those are all things that we can do of growing your own and kind of accommodating that to the specific personal locations of where all these pieces are, and then come up with recommendations or software packages so our platform can get all the way down into the software of that appliance and change how that appliance works for that person and that area and that application. So I think there's a lot of things that as we look at this connected world and the software world and the hardware world that delivers that software, I think there's just a tremendous amount of opportunities to address this.
One thing that we were kicking around in the office last week, and I think just sometimes dreaming is really exciting, right? So the idea of having, the Internet of Things, where it used to be you got a notification on your phone when your toast was done. I mean, that seemed really exciting at one point in time. You're like, okay, now I don't know if I necessarily understand it. But we're working on this technology where we're managing an inventory at home, and that could be in the freezer, in the refrigerator, in the pantry. And what if you could create this symphony where all the ingredients, let's say the 200 plus inanimate objects that you had in your refrigerator actually had a voice, and they knew what they were, right? Like the lentils knew what they were, and the beans, and the tomatoes, and the coconut milk, and the jasmine rice. What if that product actually knew what it was, right? And then so the idea of saying, hey mom, what's for dinner tonight? I think it's a laborious question, but hey, what can I make for dinner tonight based on what I have already? I think that's the question in the future, and I think we're working on solving that. So if you can imagine all of your 200 plus inanimate objects speaking to one another in harmony and concert and saying, hey, you know, I'm lentils, well, I'm coconut milk, well, I'm jasmine rice, well, I'm ginger. Man, together we can make a great curry recipe, and here's a recipe that you can make right now, so you don't really have to throw away food. Like that to me is like if you say, okay, wow, that celery, that lettuce looked really, really good a couple of days ago, and now I don't really know what to do with it. And now that lettuce could send you a notification, go, hey, dude, you know, what? Like I'm delicious, I'm crispy, I'm green,
Right.
I'm organic.
Remember, you spent $4
You spent
on me.
$4 on me, right? Here's some great recipes with my buddy the tomato and like this bacon and this blue cheese. Like we can get together and have a party tonight if you want to come. Here's the invitation. And I right? And that to me, it's like that to me is the future, right? Nobody needs to waste food, but nobody really knows what to do with it when they get it. They go to the grocery store and they shop out of like hunger and instinct, right? So they get things to look fresh and they get home like, well, I mean, yeah, it looked good, and I guess I could do something, but I don't have time, and it just then they throw it away, and so like it's a problem that as 7 billion people occupy this planet, we're going to have to start thinking through more efficient ways to use food at home. And I think if everybody just looked in their own refrigerator or knew how to use things better, we could make a serious dent in that.
Thanks for that question. Well, thanks everyone. Please visit these folks. They're all in the expo hall, and I'll just I want to quote Chef Kang. Let's all just be committed to making more magic in the kitchen. Thank you.